Oh, you're there. You caught me at it. I'm a little bit in between jobs. I'm waiting for parts or waiting for material to arrive for new superheaters for the other engine. But hopefully you'll have already seen that before you see this. It's quite rare that I film things out of order. That's why my videos sort of jump about a bit. But you might have seen at the start of that video that this engine broke on Sunday. So what broke? The pin out, the gradient pin, dropped out while Mike was driving around the track. Nothing wrong with Mike, nothing wrong with what he did. It just happened. As far as I'm aware, that's been in there best part of 60 years, but it's dropped out. So while I'm working on this, so take that back, mud on the words. What happened was the pin dropped out, the rod dropped down, hit the track, leapfrogged the engine, but it also broke the end off of the rod. So we managed to get it back, or someone got it back in place on Sunday, but I don't think they were able to get it off the other rod. So I'm just taking everything apart, and you've caught me just as I'm about to whip this off. I'm hoping I can leave the little end in place, because the little end on this grips the drop link, so it could upset the timing if I let that go. But also it's a bit of a pain to get out. So if there's enough movement on the con rod, which there is, I shall leave it in place. And they come off. So there you go. That is the broken rod. Now, how to fix it? That is the question. I should make a whole new one. However, of late I seem to be very short on time out here. Loads of stuff's cropped up at the same time, so I'm going to try and do a temporary repair that will hopefully do the trick nicely. So what I'm thinking about doing is, I still have a reference surface which would be the old hole. So I'm going to try and set it up in the milling machine with that surface centered under the milling cutter, which would be the same size milling cutter as that hole. I'm going to use a bigger cutter to then machine out, and then I'll machine a ring the same size as that cutter. So it'll drop in, all the centres should be in the same place, and I'll silver solder it together. It might not work, and if it doesn't, then it'll be put under the bench, and at some point I will make a new rod. But that won't happen anytime soon, unfortunately. So that's why a quick job, and hopefully I can get that done. But at the same time, if you notice, there wasn't a lot of meat there, and quite a big pin that was only a press fit in the centre part of the rod. So I am going to try to put a bush in this one and make a smaller hole in the outer one, a tight fit chamfered countersunk bolt from the other side with a stepped shaft, nut on the outside, and hopefully it won't go anywhere. That's my plan. Let's see how it goes. So I am not for 1 minute suggesting that this is the best way to do this job. However, it is the way I'm trying. I don't know if it's going to work. I don't know how long it'll work for if it does. But if I don't do it as a quick repair, then it goes in the major work queue, and who knows when I'll get around to that. So I'm having a go at this. It's a bit experimental. We'll see what happens. But yeah, there'll be a lot of people saying, no, don't do it like that, just do it properly. But properly is probably a new rod, and properly is probably in a year or two's time, if and when I get round to it. So to get me back on the track as soon as possible with this engine, it's just getting the end replaced. And this is the best way I can think of to keep the alignment. So we'll give it a try. If it doesn't work, I can cut it off and do something different. But for now, let's give it a go. So I'm starting off here. I'm going to just touch the cutter until it touches the old hole. It was a 3/8 hole apparently, according to the other rod. So if I go into where it's broken to the edge, find the alignment and then lock everything up, then we can change the cutter and go from there. So So I believe that's just touching on the bearing face that we had before. And now I'll change the cutter for something bigger than what we need, and then I can machine it back afterwards. So I'll find a bigger cutter, change it over, and we'll be back. So I'm trying a 16mm cutter first. I don't know if it's going to be big enough for what we want, but we'll give it a try. If it's not, I can always cut bigger, but we will see where it gets to. Ideally, I'd like to get back to where it's solid behind so I can weld in a complete piece and then slit it afterwards, but we'll see. No, I think we'll go a bit bigger. I've got a 20mm version of this, which I know is a good cutter. So we'll swap that over and we'll be back. So there we go, that's 20mm cutter. So I can do a 20mm diameter piece to go in there, which I can then do everything else to. Touch of luck and complete coincidence, maybe I should have thought about this first, I found a piece of 20mm silver steel, which is an offcut from an axle I did for something else. So this will make a lovely addition to the end of that rod. All I need to do is drill it out smaller. I'm going to go smaller than the 3/8 that it was before. I'm going to bush the middle part of the rod, which will be this one. That's going to have a bush put in it and a smaller hole through these two, which I can then put a countersunk bolt through and a nut on the outside. It'll be a machine bolt with a step so that you tighten it up and it doesn't actually go tight, but we'll come to that shortly. So I'm going to put this in the lathe, drill face part to the right thickness, then we can do something to secure it to the end of the rod. I'll be back. So hopefully you're seeing how this is starting to come together. That obviously will need making smaller, but it just needs to be held on the end while it gets soldered on, or welded on probably. So first things first, I might take off that little radius that's there, because then I can just do a fillet weld on this side, put a V on each end, weld each side there, flip it over, and then grind out there to fully weld from this side. Then hopefully that will be fairly strong. So this is my setup. You can see I've got a weld prep underneath. It's all clamped to a flattish plate, and there's a bit of a weld prep above. Now at one point I had considered just a weld on each side and then silver solder it, but I'm going to go fully welding. Now I must reiterate a point that I made a long time ago. I am not a professional welder. I'm just someone that knows a bit about welding. There's loads of people a lot better than me. If you want to learn to weld, watch their videos. This is just me getting by to do what I need to do to get this bit of job done. So let's get back. We need more power, laddie. So I have made a mandrel, which is a nice fit inside the rod. Then the end of the mandrel comes level with the top of the rod. Then a washer, which is the right size for what we're aiming for. And another small washer and a bolt holding it all together so that I can spin it like that. So we can move the cutter in until we just touch the washer, going a little bit at a time and spinning it round to machine the outside of the rod. At the moment I've got a roughing cutter on, but as we get closer I will switch to a normal flat, like straight fluted cutter. So we'll give that a quick go and hopefully it will all go to plan. So with that out the machine, I have, just with an angle grinder and a flap disc, taken off the worst of the weld marks, and on the back as well, a bit of sticking up on the sides, because the milling cutter didn't like hitting that really. So all that's left now, give that a bit of a clean up, and then we need to think about putting the fork on the end, slitting through there. So on to putting the fork in the end of the rod. Had a few ideas. Milling machine, obvious answer, and a slitting saw. Bit thin, I'd have to keep going quite a few times. Woodruff cutter, similar problem, or the opposite problem. It's wide enough, but it doesn't go. The one I've got doesn't go deep enough into the rod. So what I'm going to do, I've been reading, had a quick flick through LBSC's book on building the engine, and I'm going to use a milling cutter in the lathe. Now, a lot of people sort of, I hear, oh, I can't get into the hobby, I haven't got a lathe, I haven't got this, I haven't got that. A lathe will do everything a milling machine can do, just maybe not quite as easily. So I'm going to have a play with the lathe and see if just with a milling cutter in the head of the lathe I can machine the rod. So with the rod in the tool post and the cutter in the head, I can raise the rod up and down using the adjustments on the tool, being the quick change post. I can feed it in and out, I can feed it in all directions. But that actually, at first try, looks about right. So I'm going to take a small cut, just see what it's doing, and then I can measure it and check it's in the middle. If it's not, then I'll raise it or lower it. So with just a couple of cuts in, I can tell it's going to be a touch on the tight side, so it will need easing, but just putting the rod in like that, not being very accurate in that I'm just eyeballing, but it looks pretty good to me. So I'll be back in a while. I've just got a bit of to-ing and throwing to do, cut right through this rod, and then we'll be back when we're ready for easing it out. I just thought you might like to see one of the cuts. There is a bit of flex there. There's not much I can do about that, that's as close as I can hold it. I would have preferred a woodruff cutter in the mill, but as I didn't have one that was big enough to get to the bottom of the flute, I've had to make do with this. So, finished machining that. All I'm going to do is just tweak the position of the tool post, go through again just to clean up, and do that both directions to clean up both sides, and hopefully the rod will fit then. So there we go, it's in. Isn't quite going all the way in, but there is still a gap behind. So I'm going to finish tidying that up with a file, and then hopefully we'll be good to go. So there we go, with a bit of persuasion with this file, which actually fitted in the slot quite nicely, it is now fitted. I did have to go down a little bit deeper because it hadn't quite gone down enough. It was quite hard at the bottom because of the weld, but yeah, just a pin to make and a nut, and then we're good to fit it back to the engine. So a little update on where we're at, because I've machined this off camera. I made a pin which is a good fit in the rods. That rod goes on there. It's the shoulder is about the same thickness as the bit that sticks out, and I've also machined this nut which I made round with 2 flats on. The 2 flats, as it happens, are machined to be 2BA. So hopefully that will tighten up and it will look a bit like that from the front, which I think looks quite nice. All that's left to do, I'm going to use a Dremel and put a slot in the back of the countersink so that while the rods are off I can get a screwdriver on and tighten it up. So I'll get that done and then we can start reassembly. That didn't take long. 1 slot. So reassembly can begin with the rods. There we go. And nut. This is going to be a device job, but I'll see you back at the engine where we'll put this on. This will be the first test whether they actually fit on the engine. There we go, it's a good start. Now if we unhook, oh, let's get that one out of line. Well, other than it catching the slide bar because it's not done up yet, so it's not being held into the wheel, I think we're on to a winner. Right, let's get the conrod back on. Oh, that's all very tight. Now, if that's not a sign that the bearings need rebushing, I don't know what it is. So I'll get this all back together. Oh, there you go. The nut I made there matches the nut on the back wheel. That's convenient. And maybe that I should change for something else, but let's get this back together and we can get down to the club tomorrow with it and see if it works. So I'll catch up with you down the club.